Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we're talking about something that has so many greatest recordings ever. I mean, really, there's just a whole stack of them, and they just keep on coming. It's Bach's B minor Mass. Now, the B minor Mass used to be, back when I was a kid, an almost legendary piece. I mean, a mythological piece, because first of all, it's huge. I mean, it's the biggest mass setting out there by a major composer that gets played regularly. Number one. Number two, nobody knows exactly why Bach wrote it, because he was, of course, a Lutheran, and it's a complete setting of the entire Latin Mass. And the Lutheran Mass was a short Mass. Bach wrote 4 missae breve, or short Masses that don't contain the complete text. But this was a setting of the whole thing. And we can only surmise that towards the end of his life, Bach was motivated by what he was always motivated by, which was the need to sum up all of music as he knew it, number one. And number two, to preserve the best of his music by attaching it to the most permanent, perpetual, infinite text that he could get his hands on. Most composers did something like that. They liked writing sacred music because if it was harder to throw it away. Let's put it that way. I mean, let me just tell you a little, as an aside. For example, in the Orthodox Jewish side of things, it's not like they're running around with the B minor Mass. But if you have any kind of writing that's religious and that contains, the name of God in it, you can't throw it out. It has to be preserved. And if you do have to get rid of it, it's called shemus. You keep it separately, and it has to be buried with the appropriate ritual because it contains the name of God. So it's a holy text. Even if it's just a book or something printed or a notepad, it doesn't make any difference. It really doesn't. And so composers back in the day, when people were substantially more religious than they are today, quite often felt that by writing sacred music, they were assuring their own immortality by attaching their music to the most immortal words that they could get their hands on. The words of the Mass, the words of the Bible, anything like that. And Bach, being, extremely devout, certainly would have, I think, accepted the idea that his music had the best chance of surviving if it were attached to an immortal set of words. And boy, did he pick an immortal set of words, and boy, did he pick some immortal music to set to those words. And so this was always considered to be, even in the 60s and 70s, a very special piece of music. It really is. It's the summation of everything that Bach could do in the realm of vocal music, and even more than the Passions. It really is. And it afforded him the opportunity to write arias and choruses in every possible conceivable form. And for that reason, he adapted some of his best works, and he wrote some new stuff to fill in, but basically most of it consists of adaptations. It's almost his own choral greatest hits. Since the period instrument movement popped up, it's been recorded very regularly and very well. Very, very well, I have to say. It's one of the things the period instrument movement did that was wonderfully beneficial was reinstating a certain liveliness in the music, a brilliance with trumpets and drums, almost a secular quality, you might say, because it's just become so much more exciting. People realized what a thrill it was. But there were also recordings that were pretty darn thrilling, even though they weren't on period instruments or part of the period instrument orthodoxy. And this was certainly one of them. This is it, Karl Richter with the Munich Bach Choir and the Munich Bach Orchestra. Now this is the one from, we have to get the right one because he did it twice. There was a live one as well. And this is the not live one, which is actually the better of the two. Let's see, 1962 is when this thing came out. And it has an amazing lineup of soloists. You have Maria Stader and Hertha Topper and Ernst Haefliger, and what a cast, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and Keith Engen. And boy, can they sing, and boy, do they sing. But one of the things this performance has, which is almost a foreshadowing of what the period instrument people would do, only more so, is just a visceral thrill. I mean, there are choruses here. I'm thinking particularly of the Et Resurrexit, which is, oh my God, it's got to be the most exciting moment in all of choral music in this performance, with a really prominent organ and a choir that's just going nuts with the coloratura and trumpets just screaming away at the top of their range. The first time I heard it, it just sold me on Bach's choral music more generally, but it just blew me away. It was astonishing. It was so powerful, so brilliant, so full of this sort of blazing conviction. You know, I mean, the idea, it really got to the meaning of the music in connection with the text. It wasn't just a kind of cool, abstract exercise in counterpoint or Baroque performance practice. This is a passionate, involved, committed, extraordinary performance. Very well recorded, too. For 1962, it sounds just marvelous. And I keep coming back to it. There are other B minor masses that I love. On period instruments, yes, there are. There's some really, really great ones out there, and I've talked about them. I did a whole video of B minor masses on conventional instruments and on period instruments, and you could watch those. And we've talked about this work many, many, many times. But if I had to pick one of the greatest recordings ever, it would have to be one that I think puts the piece across, not just in terms of technique, but also devotionally, in terms of what the words say, what they mean, and that'll make a believer out of you, even if you aren't one. I mean, while you're listening to it, you are. You have no choice. It's that powerful. It grabs you by the throat and doesn't let you go. And that's what I want when I want to listen to this work. So there you go, my friends. Keep on listening. Thank you for joining me, and take care.